It's a heartbreaking story so many of us will never forget.
She vanished without a trace.
Today marks 20 years since the disappearance of Natalee Holloway.
A dream trip turned into a global mystery.
And as many of you know, this Mountain Brook High School graduate disappeared while on a senior.
Suspects walked free, theories twisted reality, and 18 years later, still no answers.
Class trip to Aruba, and her body has still not been found.
What really happened to Natalee Holloway? Watch before this cold case freezes forever.
Chief suspect in her disappearance, Joran Sloot.
Vanished Natalee Holloway was just 18 years old when she vanished without a trace. It was May 30th, 2005, and she was on a high school graduation trip to Aruba with her classmates. Bright, beautiful, and full of life, Natalee was last seen leaving a nightclub called Carlos and Charlie's around 1:30 a.m. Witnesses say she got into a car with Joran Sloot and two local brothers, Deepak and Satish Kalpo. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. When Natalee didn't show up for her flight back home, panic set in. Her luggage was still at the hotel, untouched. Her passport, phone, everything left behind. Her mother, Beth Holloway, flew to Aruba the very next day, desperate for answers. What started as a fun trip turned into a nightmare that would haunt two nations for years. Despite massive search efforts involving local authorities, the FBI, and even volunteer divers, no trace of Natalee was ever found. Aruba, a paradise for tourists, suddenly became the center of a chilling mystery. How does an 18-year-old girl simply vanish from a crowded island? This wasn't just a missing person case. It was the beginning of a mystery that would drag on for nearly 2 decades. Suspect from the very start, one name stood out: Joran Sloot. He was the last known person seen with Natalee Holloway. Just 17 years old at the time, Joran told police that he dropped Natalee off at her hotel around 2:00 a.m. But that story quickly fell apart. Investigators found inconsistencies in his timeline. His friends, Deepak and Satish Kalpo, also gave conflicting statements. At first, they backed Joran's version, but then changed their accounts multiple times. It became clear someone was lying. Joran acted calm, even arrogant, during questioning. Despite growing public pressure and Natalee's family pleading for answers, the evidence wasn't strong enough to charge him. No body, no weapon, no confession. Joran and the Kalpo brothers were arrested multiple times, but released due to lack of proof. In the media, Joran became the face of the case, a charming, manipulative figure hiding a dark truth. While Natalee's parents searched desperately for their daughter, Joran played games, giving interviews, and even trying to profit from the case. He wasn't just a suspect. He was the center of a storm that still hasn't fully passed. And the world began to ask, was this teenager a cold-blooded killer, or just the key to a much darker mystery? Timeline: May 26, 2005, Natalee Holloway, an 18-year-old American student, arrives in Aruba with her classmates for a graduation trip. Everything seems perfect. May 29, Natalee is seen for the last time leaving a nightclub called Carlos and Charlie's with 3 local boys, Joran Sloot and brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpo. May 30, Natalee fails to show up for her flight back to Alabama. Her packed luggage is found in her hotel room. Panic sets in. May 31, her disappearance is reported to Aruban police. A search begins immediately, involving locals, tourists, and even the FBI. June 9, Joran and the Kalpo brothers are arrested. Their stories constantly change. Suspicion grows, but no solid evidence is found. Over the years, new clues and false confessions emerge, but nothing leads to a conviction. The case becomes one of the most haunting timelines in missing persons history. The search for Natalee Holloway was one of the most intense ever conducted on the island of Aruba. Just hours after she was reported missing on May 30, 2005, volunteers, tourists, and police began combing beaches, forests, and abandoned buildings. The Aruban government even provided helicopters, divers, and K-9 units. The FBI joined in within days. Hotels released surveillance footage, boats were scanned, and rumors flew everywhere. Locals believed she might have been taken out to sea. Divers checked shipwrecks and coral reefs. but found nothing. Satellite images were reviewed, and a massive reward was offered. $250,000 for her return, $100 million for her remains. Over 18 years, more than a dozen searches were launched, including in landfills, caves, and foreign countries. Each time, hopes rose, then were crushed. Despite all efforts, no trace of Natalee's body was ever found. The island was small, but the mystery only grew bigger. Theories as the investigation stalled, theories began to flood the media and the internet, each one more chilling than the last. The most widely accepted theory: Joran van der Sloot, the last person seen with Natalee, was directly involved. He changed his story multiple times, first saying he left her on the beach, then claiming she collapsed, later denying everything. Some believe he accidentally killed her, panicked, and got help to hide the body. Another theory suggests human trafficking. Aruba, being close to South America, has known smuggling routes. Could Natalee have been kidnapped and sold into a network? Some locals whispered about police corruption, that powerful families or local authorities helped cover up the crime to protect reputations. Then there were false leads, confessions that went nowhere, tip-offs that wasted years. With no body and no clear evidence, the case became a puzzle with too many missing pieces, and a dozen competing theories. Confession for years. Joran van der Sloot danced around the truth, telling lies, making fake confessions, and playing mind games with investigators and Natalee's grieving family. But in October 2023, nearly 2 decades later, everything changed. Facing charges in the US for extortion and wire fraud, after he tried to sell fake information to Beth Holloway about her daughter's remains, Joran finally spoke. As part of a plea deal, he gave a full confession about what happened on the night of May 30, 2005. According to Joran, he and Natalee walked along the beach after leaving the nightclub. When she rejected his sexual advances, he became enraged. In his own words, he smashed her head in with a cinder block, then pushed her lifeless body into the sea. It was cold, brutal, and horrifyingly detailed. This time, his story was consistent. It matched the timeline, the setting, the behavior that investigators had long suspected. And most of all, it felt real. But even with the confession, Joran faced no murder charges in Aruba due to lack of physical evidence. Still, Natalee's mother called it a moment of spiritual closure, a truth she had waited 18 years to hear. Joran is now serving time in Peru for another murder, with more years added after this confession. But the damage was done. One final lie stripped away, and the world finally knew the truth about what really happened to Natalee Holloway. Closure after 18 painful years, the Holloway family finally got what they had been chasing: answers. Not in the form of a trial, not with a body, but with a confession. In October 2023, when Joran van der Sloot admitted to killing Natalee, it brought a strange, bittersweet end to a case that haunted millions. For Beth Holloway, it wasn't justice in the traditional sense. Joran wasn't charged with Natalee's murder, but hearing him admit the brutal details gave her something she never had before: the truth. This wasn't the ending anyone had hoped for. There was no happy reunion, no miracle. Just the harsh reality that Natalee was taken far too soon, her life erased in a moment of rage, and her body lost to the sea. Still, the confession allowed the family to stop living in limbo, to let go of the false leads, the fake stories, the painful hope that maybe she was still alive. Beth called it a spiritual closure, a moment that ended the search, but not the grief. Joran remains in prison in Peru, serving time for the 2010 murder of Stephanie Flores. With the added 20-year U.S. sentence for extortion, he's unlikely to ever walk free again. The case of Natalee Holloway will always be remembered, not just for its mystery, but for a mother's relentless fight for truth. And though justice came late and incomplete, her story finally has an ending. What do you believe? Was it a cover-up, a tragic accident, or something far more sinister? Hit that subscribe button and drop your theory in the comments. Don't miss our next video, The Chilling Case of the Watcher, who was watching 657 Boulevard.